I'm Max Sterling, welcome to LARPgasm. Today I'm going to teach you how to make a spell packet, or spell package, or spell components, or spacket, as some people call them. But basically this is the physical representation of what you throw when you're casting a spell. And when this item hits the person, they know that they've taken the spell, whether it be harmful or helpful. Some games permit latex orbs or balls to be thrown. Sometimes they have little cloth tails attached to them. But in most games where you may be throwing 10, 20, 30 of these things per combat, the latex orbs are big and they take up a lot of space, plus they're expensive. Meanwhile, standard spell packets, which are just basically cloth and birdseed, are very cheap to make, and you can carry a ton of them on you, and if you lose them, it's not really a big deal. And that's what I'm going to show you how to make. I realize that most people probably know how to make these and that the rules for their construction are going to vary greatly between LARPs. However, I'm going to give you the basics, and then that way at least you'll know where to start with. So we're going to go ahead and see about making one of these guys and start casting some spells. And the first thing we're going to need here is a scrap piece of cloth. Now, ideally you would be using something organic, wool or linen, something that will biodegrade if you miss your target and it flies into the woods or over a cliffside, so it's not going to damage the environment. Now, a lot of games don't have any sort of regulation on that. However, I would still strongly suggest using a fabric like that, but you can use whatever you want to. So today we're going to use some velvet here that I have. It's very soft, doesn't fray much, so it should be good for a spell packet. The other one that I had showed earlier does have fraying on the ends because of the cheap fabric and the type of fabric. This may be a style that you're going for, and if you want that look, that's great, but you can use pretty much any fabric you want. I would suggest trying to get something soft, but yet organic still, but I leave that entirely up to you. Now, to get started, we need to determine how big we want our spell packet to be. Now, some games call for a 6" by 6" square. So that's what we're going to go with. As far as anyone that doesn't use inches, you can figure out centimeters easily enough, I'm sure. So 6 inches, not very big, but that's what we're going to roll with. And there we have our 6" by 6" square. And now the next step is to fill this up. I would suggest using about $2 worth of American quarters, because that way when you fold this up and seal it, you know it's going to fly true, and when this hits somebody, there's going to be no doubt in their mind that they just got hit by a spell. However, if you don't live in the US and you don't have access to US currency, another substitute option you could try would be a C-cell battery. If you put this into your spell packet and wrap it up, this will also give you a pretty good flight time, so you'll really be able to throw this. So if you need some sort of egress spell and you need to throw this far, this will get you there. Also, if you need to throw it as a healing spell or something and someone is on the other side of the battlefield, it will make it. So I would suggest that. Let's get real though. What most games will call for you to put in here is birdseed. Now, the problem with birdseed is a lot of birdseed contains non-indigenous or invasive seeds from grass or plants. So a lot of camps and parks don't allow for birdseed anymore in these packets because they're afraid of those non-indigenous species getting into the mix and choking out other plant life or harming animals that eat it. So a lot of games have moved into other items. Now, one thing that you could try, if birdseed is not an option, is you could suggest possibly grass seed. As long as the grass seed is indigenous to your area, then I don't think that should be a problem because it's just grass seed and it shouldn't hurt anything. However, most games have moved on to using biodegradable airsoft pellets or BBs. Now, When you buy the biodegradable ones, it'll say right on the container, these are biodegradable, so make sure you buy those ones and not the non-biodegradable ones. And generally speaking, for a 6x6 packet, you're looking at about a shot glass full, which is also approximately a 35 millimeter canister roll full, if you know what 35 millimeter film canisters are. 1 ounce shot glass, not a 1.5 or 2 ounce shot glass, a 1 ounce shot glass. It's also about 6 teaspoons or, you know, like I said, 1 ounce worth or 1/8 of a cup, you know, depending on where you're at and what system of measurement you use. Now, the problem with these is, unlike birdseed or something you could just pour in here and it's not going to roll away, these will roll everywhere. So when you put these in here, you really got to make sure that you get them spot on, because they will go all over. And so you can see that these are in here. And I like to take the corners up, and there's probably not necessarily any specific way you need to do this. I just think it's easier to bring the corners in on each other and then just sort of pull it all together and seal it. Now, if you have a sort of stretchable fabric like what I'm using, then you can sort of push these down and make sure they get packed nice and tightly in there. And that's going to be our spell package. Now, you could and should probably use a biodegradable string or twine as well, something natural to go around along with your natural fabric cover. Most places are going to call for a gum band. Oh, what, Max? What in the hell is a gum band? Well, this is a gum band. At least in my neck of the woods. Where you're from, this is probably called a rubber band, though. But basically, you're going to take this, put it onto your spell packet, and seal it up. Now, you don't want to make it super tight, but tight enough that nothing's going to come out. So you make the call on how many times you go over with it on there. A little bit of spillage is normal, so if a couple of these fall out, no big deal. A lot of people like to take and pull these. You could try to even it out if you want to. It's entirely up to you if you didn't get it quite perfectly centered. But that right there is a spell packet. And this will work. Now, you say, you know, it's pretty common sense, but you know, there's a lot of things to consider in it. Like I said, consider the fabric, consider the way you tie it. Now, the good thing about these gum bands is that they break down pretty fast out in nature. I mean, you get a good freeze or something, good hot day, and these will break off, expose whatever's inside. The pellets will dissolve over time. A fabric like this that's kind of cheap will also dissolve quickly over time, but if you have organic components you're using, it will dissolve that much faster. Obviously, if you're using birdseed, it'll be eaten right away by animals, but you can use whatever you want. Check your game's rules, see what they allow for, and then go from there. So this is our BB one. This one has birdseed in. I used more fabric on this one, so it had a longer tail, but you know, you can do whatever you want. I use black spell components because I'm an edgelord and I wear all black, and I am a rogue that is evil and an assassin. So I use black packets, but you can do whatever you want. Some games have specific colors that you have to use for specific things, but if not, you're free to decorate these, use whatever outlandish fabric you care to. I would think that if you're a fire mage, you would use red or orange or yellow, or maybe, you know, some sort of fabric that showed that. Same way if you're like water or ice, you would use blues. If you're air, you could use blue as well. If you're earth, browns. You know, I would try to keep it cliche to that, so that people know if you're throwing a fireball, hey, that looks like a fireball. I mean, it's the little things that add to the game. These are death, so I would expect for them to be black. But, you know, you do you. And the only things to really keep in mind when you're making these packets is read your rules for your game. Use the fabrics, the tying things that they specify. Only put what they specify inside. If it says birdseed, put birdseed in. If it says BBs, put BBs in. If it says grass seed, put grass seed in. Do not put money in there. Do not put batteries in there. Do not put lead weights, fishing weights, buckshot, screws, nails, or anything insane into these. But also, don't put things like rice into them, because that can harm animals that eat them. Also, some places may be okay with sand, but sand tends to compact and it can get wet. And if you get hit with that, it's going to hurt a lot. And that's pretty much it as far as packets are concerned. So a 6" by 6" square, maybe a little bit bigger depending on your rules. If there are no rules, I would still suggest going with this size, 6" by 6", approximately in size. And like I said, about an ounce worth of whatever you're putting inside of it. These will fly nicely. They will go 15, 20 feet, maybe even more, depending on how good of an arm you have. And the good thing about these is they don't really pack tight, and people aren't going to whine too much about getting hit with them. If you do check them every so often and feel that they are getting hard, or maybe something has infiltrated and these are starting to melt together or something, you can always replace them. And they're so cheap to make, you can carry pockets full of them or bags full of them. And like I said, if you happen to lose one after a bad one and you can't find it, it's not really a big deal. You should always try to clean up everything. However, if one of these does get stray off in the woods, you don't have to worry about it that much, because it's not going to harm anything and will just break down over time, and a short period of time at that. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please click like, please subscribe, and please share this video with others. Let everybody know about my channel. And if you have any questions about spell packets, or if your game uses something different or drastically different, I'd love to hear about it, and maybe even see photos of it. But until next time, adventure on. All together and seal it. Now, if you have a sort of stretchable fabric like what I'm using, then you can sort of push these down and make